As I'm sure you all know, just before midnight last night, Gregory Lewis was apprehended in New York. Just give you a brief summary. I spoke with the chief shortly after midnight. A New York State trooper attempted to, as he was driving down the roadway, he noticed a vehicle without a front license plate. He turned around to stop it. The vehicle did initially stop, and when the New York trooper got out of his cruiser to approach the vehicle, the car fled. Their policy in the location that they were at, Fort Edward Village, they don't pursue into that village, so he then met with the Fort Edward Village officers just to tell them what had occurred, asked them to be on the lookout for the vehicle. There were two Fort Edward Village officers there, and they were also field training officers, so they had two rookie officers with them. Mr. Lewis, when he was fleeing from the New York State Police, subsequently took a turn down a dead-end road and went right through the dead-end road and into a body of water. A resident heard the accident, went to help, and Mr. Lewis subsequently brandished a firearm, threatened him, made some other statements, and the Fort Edward Village Police Department was subsequently called with a 911 call. The officers were nearby. They immediately converged and arrested Mr. Lewis at gunpoint. The vehicle, Mr. Lewis was subsequently brought back to the police station. Vehicle was towed. We believe there's going to be a search warrant on the vehicle today for evidence relating to what occurred last night and what's been occurring over the last several weeks. He's already been arraigned. Currently, there's a Massachusetts State Trooper, Trooper Amy Waterman from the Violent Fugitive Apprehension Section, and Detective Sergeant Carlos Dingy from the Southbridge Police Department. They're in New York right now working with the local police department, and also they've been in contact with police departments all across the country to see if what can be done to further the prosecutions in those areas. We're awaiting, he's been arraigned, we're waiting to see if he's waived rendition, and as soon as we find that out, he'll be transported back here to Massachusetts. Go, Major.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. Just want to say in the beginning, this was a very active investigation from the very beginning. The local detectives with our troopers assigned to the Violent Fugitive Arrest Squad have been actively pursuing every lead during the course of this investigation. That is one of the reasons why you saw multiple photos of the suspect. We were developing the best intelligence we could get during the course of the investigation to give you, the public, and law enforcement across the country the best photos we could of this subject as he changed appearance during the course. So that's one of the reasons why you may have saw different photographs in the wanted posters that were out there. Sure.
Good morning. I just want to publicly acknowledge the 5 detectives from my agency, as well as the troopers from the Mass State Police Fugitive Unit for since September 15th, their tireless efforts 24/7 around the clock to apprehend this violent fugitive.
So we'll open it up for questions now. Keep in mind that this is an active investigation.
General, do we know at what point the officers in New York knew who they were dealing with during that initial stop, and then subsequently when they went into the village? Did they know who was Lewis?
From what I've been told, I don't believe they knew initially. I don't believe the trooper knew initially, and it was only after they responded to the firearm call that they realized who they were dealing with.
Was this kind of a chance break in this case for you guys?
Well, I wouldn't call it a chance break. The bulletin had been distributed. Actually, we had just updated it yesterday, just after 5 o'clock, with a new photo. We've been sending law enforcement bulletins out all along. As you know, the last information we had, he was in Columbus, Ohio. He had indicated to several people that he was going to come back to Massachusetts, and he wanted to kill the victim from his original case. So all that fit to what we had learned. We specifically alerted the New York authorities, Pennsylvania authorities. That made the most sense of how he was going to come back here. So law enforcement throughout the country, but in particular in the Northeast, was extremely vigilant throughout this.
You kind of addressed this just in that last part there, but can you indicate now that you've caught him through your investigation, did you get any idea why he was going all around the country and then decided to come back? Was his original plan to just nationwide do as much damage as he could and then go out? Or?
I don't know that he ever had a plan. I think it was almost a spur of the moment type of thing, but I don't want to speculate on. I don't think I can speculate on his mentality and his state of mind, but it was almost like he had nothing to lose, and it was his last hurrah, and he was going to go out and do as much damage as possible for as long as he could.
But then you had a statement that indicated he did come up with a plan to come back.
More than one statement. More than one statement on that, yes.
Did he resist arrest in any way? He said he was wielding a gun. Did he put the gun down? Did he threaten the officers or point the gun in their direction in any way? Talk a little bit.
I haven't talked to the specific officers. I talked to the chief. I don't want to speak for them, but he was taken into custody with no injuries, which was the important thing.
Can you talk at all about efforts to protect his victims in Southbridge? Or they...
I'd have to refer that to the Worcester County District Attorney's Office because they were intimately involved in those, what the precautions were for that.
What can you share with us about his background? Where he came from? Was he born in Southbridge? Where did he work? Where did he go to school? Do we know anything?
Yes, he's a lifelong Southbridge resident, and the only real background we had with him or prior contact prior to this incident was in 2009. He was arrested by our police department on an AWOL, an absent without leave, from the military.
Which branch do you know?
I believe it was the Army. He had left basic training and did not return.
Before he went to school or anything like that?
He had went to school in Southbridge.
College?
That I don't have that information.
Do you know his last address?
It was in Southbridge.
Was it, do you know the street?
It was on Brentwood Drive in Southbridge.
Brentwood Drive?
Yes.
Do you know the number?
I believe 113, possibly.
Did he ever live on Queen?
He may have. It's on Brentwood Drive, his last known address that we had, and he also may have lived on Coombe Street.
Lewis was on the run for several weeks. Any sense of how he was able to elude law enforcement for so long?
Mr. Lewis was savvy. We have information that he did his research on the best way to stay under the radar, away from law enforcement. So we do have a good idea as to how he did that, but we're not prepared to release that right now.
Did you do that research before you cut off the GPS bracelet, or when he was already on the run?
I don't want to get too specific on that because it's still part of the investigation.
Given how far he traveled and how dangerous this guy was, is there a sense of relief around here that he's now been caught?
Absolutely. I mean, I can say there's a sense of relief. Usually, we're a busy unit and make approximately 2,900 arrests a year, and I can't think of the last time we had a fugitive who acted in this way. Usually when they run, they don't want to draw any attention to themselves whatsoever, so they try to behave themselves as much as they can, and but Mr. Lewis was the opposite. His crimes became, he became more emboldened, more aggressive, and he acted basically the opposite of how we typically deal with fugitives.
You talked about the description about going into the neighborhood. It sounded like they lost the car for a little bit, and then their alert was from the neighbors hearing the crash. I mean, was it a distance or time that they lost sight or control?
It was quick. Again, it was because of the policy of the New York State Police in that area not to pursue him because they were going into a heavily populated small village area. So that's why the trooper didn't pursue him, but he did follow that direction, and then he alerted local law enforcement, and then the call came in. So it was minutes.
Also, because I guess he thought at that time he simply had a guy without a license plate who didn't know who he was.
Correct.
dealing.
Right.
When he's brought back here, where might he likely be brought first? You know, Southbridge, to you guys?
I would believe he'd go to Southbridge Police
Southbridge.
Department.
And be arraigned, he's arraigned at the district court? there?
He'd be arraigned at Dudley District Court, correct.
When you think about the fact he was caught and no one was hurt, what goes through your mind?
Like I said, relief. What happened last night was something we were very concerned about throughout. We knew that at some point there was going to be an officer who pulled him over for a minor traffic violation and was going to walk up in the car, and the possibility was there, very real, based on multiple witness statements, that he wanted to conclude this with a shootout with police. So,
Surprised he didn't?
Yes and no. I think we're fortunate in that there were 5 police officers there were the two field training officers, the two rookie officers, and the New York trooper. Also, his vehicle was disabled in the water, so I think at that point he realized it was the end of the road. Unfortunately, he didn't take it any further than that.
You said you made some statements to the man who tried to help him. Can you say all what he said?
I'll just defer that to the chief of New York.
Was the missing plate a Massachusetts plate, New York plate, you know what state?
The New York plate was on the vehicle.
New York plate.
Police in New York City made the statement, "Don't you know who I am?" What can you say about what you know of his awareness of the search for him?
We have information he was very aware of the search and the efforts that were taken by law enforcement.
So he threatened the person who saw him, but his interaction with the police, do you understand, he gave up, so he chose not to try to use the weapon? I'm just curious. He was in the water there. I didn't know if he had to say with his weapon.
Yeah, I'm not, I'll just have to defer to them on that.
Or did he know when he turned down that street? I mean, did he intentionally drive into the water, or suddenly find himself under the water?
Yeah, my information was he took a wrong turn and it ended up being a dead-end street, and he was going so fast to get away from the police that he ended up in the water, unintentional.
Obviously, he's possibly connected to several other crimes throughout the country. Without working with other law enforcement, would this have ended so quickly for you guys, or?
No, cooperation all along. Since the time he fled, when the Southbridge Police Department began looking for him, Trooper Waterman, who is in the VFAS unit, who works with Southbridge PD all the time, they started working on it right away, and it just grew and grew. Because of the efforts of the Southbridge detectives and Trooper Waterman, they subsequently were able to determine that the crime in North Carolina, for example, was connected to Lewis and some of the other incidents that we've had as well.
You know why he was in New York State, upstate New York? Was that his destination, or was he traveling through, passing through to some other locations?
I don't know specifically. As I said, he had made statements that his ultimate goal was to come back and kill the victim from his original charge, so he was very close to the Massachusetts border.
So we're talking about 13, 14-year-old girls you guys are obviously, as you say, protecting. How were they feeling before, and how are they feeling now?
For that to be
Well, we had spoken with them this morning, sometime after midnight, actually, when we talked to them, explained to them that he had been apprehended, and they, needless to say, I mean, I think it's obvious they were extremely relieved. It's been a long road for them from September 15th to today, that's for sure.
And how tough was this for them before? I mean, and particularly when you guys got info that he was coming back for it.
Well, as you can imagine, it was an extremely stressful event for the entire family.
Do we know about his family? I mean, we know he was allegedly assaulted his stepfather, but does he have any family that he would have been interested in coming back and seeing in Southbridge?
At this point, again, it's an ongoing investigation, so we can't comment on that.
Have you had a little more information on what happened when you went to the river? Did you share that about the dog?
Correct.
Participating in the arrest?
According to reports coming from New York, and again, I'd like to defer everything to them, but what I'm being told is he was on the riverbank of the Hudson River, and at some point he had actually dropped the firearm. I'm not sure if it was inadvertent or not, but at that particular point, that's when he was apprehended by the police and also a canine used by a police officer from New York.
Does that sound like a surrender at that point?
And again, I'll defer that to them.
Was he essentially funding his own way across the country? I know that he's alleged to have committed robberies.
I'll defer that question.
We also know that you gave us a very good timeline. I know you can't tell us how you got it, but is this an indication that we can draw from that there was some very high-tech, some very useful ways you have now tracking people like this that you once didn't have?
That's true, but also I think it's a combination of the hard work from the officers here, the hard work from the officers in all parts of the country, and also the media getting the photographs out. I mean, the photographs went nationwide, so I think it was just an overall cooperative effort, and finally he's in custody.
Do you think that all the crimes listed on this timeline are all the crimes he committed, or is there concern that he could have been doing other things and having it been reported? Or?
Well, we've gotten that timeline out to basically every police department in the country, so we want them to know where he was, when he was there. We followed up with phone calls, so that's up to them at this point, and they know where he is, and we'll help him any way that we can.
I would anticipate that you'll see further victims coming forward after this, though.
One more question?
I believe there will be, yes.
At some point, might he have to go to face charges in Colorado and other places?
Yes, there are NCIC warrants, so he eventually is going to have to answer for his crimes all throughout the country, yes.
All right, thank you very much.